The Sunfallen Road, Chapter 3. The attendant, whose name turned out to be Maria, brought me to a small but well-appointed room on the second floor of the manse. She eyed my body critically, and I understood that she was measuring me with her eyes so she could find clothes for me. My mother had done it many times in making me and my sisters dresses, and my eyes clouded at the thought of her. "I will return shortly. In the meantime, there is wash water on the dresser and other such things as you may need. Feel free to refresh yourself." She left the room, and I undressed quickly, picking up a cloth and washing myself. As it turned out, I was quite dirty. I rinsed my hair and dried myself and it, and put my shift back on. I sat and I waited. I was so thirsty that it had become almost unbearable, but somehow I managed to keep myself together. Maria returned soon after, and with her she carried fresh underclothes and a simple but pretty dress in forest green, ornamented with a cream-colored sash. She helped me to dress, and once she had that done, she twisted my creek curls up into a bun and pinned it there. She turned me around once, eyed me, and nodded. "However did you come to meet the Shaya? She has quite a reputation," said Maria thoughtfully, a disdainful expression upon her face. "I was going to see my parents," I said, folding my hands. She asked me directions to the library, and since it was on my way, I showed her. She nodded. "I will tell you that as her child, you will have much to overcome, regardless of the regent showing you his favor." She adjusted the sash on my dress. "What? What regent?" "Every city has a vampire regent, an individual who keeps order over the vampires in the area of that city," she said. "The man you met was Regent Klaus Kantor, the regent of Berlin." I blinked. "Oh. There, you will do." She smiled that brief half-smile. "Come." She led me to the other end of the floor, where we entered a fairly large library. I was entranced at once, despite my burning thirst. A fire burned in the grate, and several stuffed leather chairs were arranged around it. "His Grace will meet you here soon," said Maria. "Make yourself comfortable." She left the room, and although I was itching to look at the many books the regent had in his library, I felt that maybe it wouldn't be polite, so I seated myself by the fire and waited. I waited for what seemed like a long time. Although in reality I don't think it was more than 5 or 10 minutes, my apprehension made the time stretch. Finally, I heard a step on the threshold, and I looked around to see him. I got to my feet and curtsied as gracefully as I could. "Your Grace?" He smiled at me and extended his hand. We shook hands, which surprised me, as ordinarily only men shook hands with each other. I took it, then, as a sign of respect and welcome. "Melpomene, please, sit down," he said, indicating the chair I had recently vacated. I took my seat again, and he sat in the adjacent chair. I noticed for the first time how he was dressed. A blue brocade jacket over a white silk shirt, fitted breeches, boots. A typical nobleman, in other words. Still, he didn't look like a foolish nobleman. His eyes were assessing and sharp, and I could tell by looking at him that he was highly intelligent, and this was how he had risen to his present status. He assessed me now. "You are thirsty." I very suddenly remembered my thirst. Yes. He got to his feet and went to the door. He conferred with someone outside, and then returned to his seat. "I have sent someone to get you something to drink," said the regent. "How much did the Shaya tell you about the thirst?" "Nothing," I said, plucking some lint off my skirt, my hands shaking slightly. He sighed, folding his hands. "The first thirst is always the worst. The blood will overwhelm you with its scent. You must learn to control your thirst. It is one of the many ways in which we survive, by taking a little at a time. This time, though, you will need to drink much." Although I didn't much like the idea of drinking blood, at least not on the conscious level, my instincts clamored. I just hoped I wouldn't make a mess of myself while I was drinking. I might have been crazy, but I was still a lady, at least in how I thought of myself. A servant appeared with a tray, upon which sat 2 pitchers of dark red liquid and 2 glasses. He set it down on a table between us, bowed, and departed. I moved toward it immediately. The regent reached for my arm and took it gently. Now, slowly. I picked up the pitcher as he released me, and a glass. My hands shook. He shook his head. Never mind the glass. You are thirsty. Drink. I held the pitcher to my lips and sipped, bracing for something awful. It didn't come. The blood was sweet and warm and fresh. I drank and I drank until the pitcher was empty, and still I wanted more. Later, I realized that I had drunk about 3 pints of blood. The average vampire only needs to take a pint or less per feeding, but gluttony is a common sin among vampire kind, if for no other reason than that blood is even more satisfying to vampires than the finest meats or pastries are to humans. The regent smiled and picked up a napkin from the tray, handed it to me. I dabbed my mouth carefully, and it came away red. Have another glass. He poured for both of us from the second picture, and this time I sipped at mine carefully, as any proper young lady might sip a glass of wine at table. Good. He sipped at his. Tell me, Melpomene, are you educated? I lowered my glass. Yes. I work as a lawyer's assistant in the city. My parents saw that I was educated well. He nodded. What are your strengths? Literature, French, music, and mathematics. Very interesting. He sipped again. I have a proposal for you, but first, I must tell you more about what you are now, and the laws that you must follow. I set aside my glass, and I listened.